The unknown regions had always been exactly that: unknown, unexplored, and unwelcoming to those who ventured too far from charted hyperspace lanes. But on this day, in a nameless sector beyond even the Chiss Ascendancy's carefully guarded borders, reality itself screamed. It began as a sensor ghost, a distortion that Chiss patrolcraft initially dismissed as gravitic interference from the dense stellar cluster. Then space began to bleed. Not the clean shimmer of hyperspace emergence, but something fundamentally wrong. A wound in the fabric of existence that pulsed with sickly purple-green light. The Chiss ships activated their weapons and prepared to investigate. But before they could maneuver closer, the rift exploded outward. What emerged defied comprehension. Ships, dozens of them, each one a cathedral of steel and fury, their hulls encrusted with Gothic architecture that served no aerodynamic purpose. Golden eagles, skeletal gargoyles, towering spires crowned with massive cannons. The smallest vessels dwarfed Victory-class star destroyers. The largest eclipsed even the superstar destroyers that represented the Empire's ultimate expression of naval supremacy. They came through burning, their void shields flickering against the dimensional trauma, their hulls scarred by something that looked like corrosion but moved with unnatural purpose. The lead vessel was a battle barge, its prow shaped like an armored fist wrapped around a sword. Across its hull, rendered in gold leaf 20 meters tall, was a single word in a language the Chiss computers couldn't translate: Invictus. The Chiss patrol commander opened a communication channel, broadcasting on all frequencies in Trade Basic, Psi Beastie, and Chayun. Unknown vessels, you have entered Chiss Ascendancy space. Identify yourselves immediately and prepare to be boarded for... The response was not diplomatic. Lance batteries, weapons that made turbolasers look like blaster pistols, spoke first. Brilliant columns of superheated plasma crossed the void at near light speed. The Chiss patrol craft managed to raise their shields, but it didn't matter. The plasma lances punched through defensive screens like they weren't there, cored through reinforced hulls, and flash-boiled entire crew compartments in milliseconds. 3 ships died before the commander could finish his sentence. The 4th managed to launch a single hyperspace beacon before it, too, was reduced to expanding debris. The Crusade fleet advanced. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. May the Force be with you. Inside the Invictus, Chapter Master Mordred of the Black Templars stood on the command deck, his massive power-armored form dwarfing even the ship's naval officers. His ancient armor, black as void with white trim and red Crusader crosses, bore the scars of 3 centuries of war. The helmet's red eye lenses fixed on the main viewport, watching the alien vessels disintegrate under the fleet's firepower. "Xenos," he growled, the Vox speakers in his armor turning his voice into something between a war horn and a death rattle. "We emerged from the warp into a galaxy infested with Xenos." Beside him, Inquisitor Helene Cord studied the flickering hololith displays with cold calculation. Unlike the towering space marine, she was merely human, though the rosette of the Inquisition hanging from her armored coat meant she wielded authority that even chapter masters had to respect. Her bionic eye whirred as it analyzed the alien vessel schematics the fleet's cogitators were assembling from debris. "Unknown Xenos," she corrected, her voice sharp and precise. "Unknown technology, unknown threat level." She gestured at the data streams. These vessels use energy weapons similar to Imperial plasma technology, but their power generation is insufficient, primitive by Mechanicus standards. Primitive or not, they died like Xenos always do. Mordred turned to the fleet's highest-ranking naval officer, Lord Admiral Castigan. "What is our status?" Castigan looked as though he'd aged a decade in the past hour. The warp transit had been catastrophic. Their navigator had died screaming about wrongness in the Immaterium, and they'd emerged Emperor Newware with no Astronomicon beacon to guide them home. His voice was steady despite the circumstances. 47 vessels accounted for, Lord Chapter Master. We've lost contact with 6 ships, presumed lost in the transit. Our current location is unknown. Stellar cartography has no reference points. We're nowhere in Imperial space. Then we are in heretic or Xenos territory. Mordred's assessment was immediate and absolute. Standard Crusade protocols apply. We establish a foothold, purge all resistance, and bring this sector into compliance with the God Emperor's will. Chapter Master, one of the Mechanicus tech priests interrupted, his vocal synthesizer crackling with binary cant before switching to Gothic. We are detecting extensive communications traffic across this sector. Thousands of signals, millions. This is not wilderness space. This is a populated stellar region. Inquisitor Cord stepped closer to the tech priest station. Languages? Unknown. None match Imperial records. However, cogitator analysis suggests linguistic patterns consistent with human vocal structures. There may be human populations in this region. That changed everything. The Crusades' mission, before the catastrophic warp accident, had been to bring a rebellious sector back into the Imperial fold. If there were humans here, they were either lost colonies from the dark age of technology or heretics who'd fled Imperial justice. Either way, they required salvation or purging. Begin wide-spectrum surveillance, Cord began, but Mordred interrupted her. No, we advance. His armored gauntlet clenched into a fist. 47 warships is a Crusade fleet. We are the Black Templars, the Emperor's eternal warriors, and we will not cower in unknown space analyzing Xenos chatter. We find the nearest human population, we assess their loyalty to the throne, and we bring them into compliance. Chapter Master, we don't know. I know the Emperor protects. Mordred's voice carried the absolute certainty that made Space Marines such terrifying warriors. And I know that wherever we are, humanity requires the Imperium's guidance. Navigator Secundus, plot a course toward the densest communications traffic. Lord Admiral, battle stations. We advance in the Emperor's name. Across the Crusade fleet, alarms began to wail. Void shields powered to full strength. Weapons batteries loaded. Thousands of Imperial guardsmen prepared their lace guns and said prayers to the God Emperor. In the Invictus's monastery barracks, 100 Black Templar Space Marines knelt in prayer before their armor shrines, each warrior a genetically enhanced transhuman killing machine, preparing for holy war. The fleet began to move deeper into the unknown regions, leaving behind the debris of the Chiss patrol and a hyperspace beacon broadcasting a single warning into the void. Demons. They are demons from the darkness beyond, and in the unknown regions. Among the scattered outposts and hidden bases that dotted this lawless frontier, sensors began detecting something impossible. Ships, massive ships, dozens of them, moving with purpose toward the boundaries of known space. The Imperium of Man had entered the Star Wars galaxy, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. Less than a year, one of dozens of forward operating bases the Empire was establishing in the unknown regions. Its purpose was simple: monitor potential threats, chart hyperspace routes, and ensure no rebel cells established footholds beyond Imperial reach. The base commander, Captain Jarek Than, had considered it a punishment posting until 3 hours ago. Now he wished he'd never left the core worlds. "Sir, they're not responding to any hails," Lieutenant Maris reported, her voice tight with barely controlled fear. "Standard Imperial frequencies, emergency channels, even Old Republic codes. Nothing." Than stared at the tactical display, watching the 47 contacts advance with inexorable purpose. His sensor technicians had tried everything: gravitic analysis, electromagnetic spectrum scans, mass shadow calculations. The results made no sense. Ships that massive shouldn't exist. The Empire's own star destroyers were marvels of engineering, but these vessels made them look like patrol craft. "Power signatures?" he asked, already knowing the answer would be bad. "Off the scale, sir. Their reactors are generating output comparable to our entire station. Each one." The technician's hands shook as he manipulated the console. "And sir, their weapons. When they engaged the Chiss patrol, our long-range sensors caught the exchange. Those energy weapons have yields in the gigaton range. Per shot." The bridge fell silent. A standard turbo laser battery hit with kilotons of force. Gigatons meant these ships could glass planets from orbit with casual bombardment. "They're 9 hours out at current speed," Than said quietly. Transmit everything we have to Coruscant. Flag it with threat level Omega classification. Then prepare the base for evacuation." "Sir?" Maris looked shocked. "Evacuate? We're an Imperial installation. We run from this." Than pointed at the display. "Those are not rebel ships, not Chiss, not anything in Imperial records. We're a listening post with 3 patrol corvettes for defense. If they're hostile, we can't stop them. Our duty is to warn the Empire, not die pointlessly." The transmission burst toward Coruscant at light speed, carrying sensor data, tactical analysis, and Captain Than's recommendation. "Dispatch Star Destroyer Battle Group immediately. Unknown force represents potential existential threat to Imperial security." But the Crusade fleet didn't wait 9 hours. 4 hours later, a single vessel broke formation and accelerated ahead of the main fleet. It was a strike cruiser, barely 3 kilometers long, small by Imperial Navy standards. The Righteous Fury, home to a company of Black Templars and their support fleet elements. Its captain had received permission from Chapter Master Mordred to conduct reconnaissance in force. The strike cruiser dropped from high-velocity transit directly above Nirawan's orbital plane, void shields flaring as it absorbed the station's panicked defensive fire. The turbo-laser batteries that should have crippled smaller vessels splashed harmlessly against the Imperium's superior shielding technology. Return fire was precise and devastating, lance strikes that carved through the station's deflector screens and vaporized entire sections of hull plating. In the Righteous Fury's primary hangar bay, 30 Black Templars loaded into Thunderhawk gunships. Brother Sergeant Grimaldus checked his bolt pistol's ammunition feed, his black armor adorned with purity seals and oath papers. Through his helmet's Vox link, he heard the strike cruiser's captain announce, "Hangar bays located. Minimal defensive fire. The Emperor lights our path." "Deus Imperator," Grimaldus responded, the ancient battle prayer echoed by his squad. The Thunderhawk's assault ramp slammed shut, and they launched into the void. Captain Than watched the gunships approach with sick fascination. They moved like predatory birds, angular and brutal, their hulls covered in Gothic ornamentation and weapon housings. His security chief was shouting orders, marshalling the station's garrison, 200 stormtroopers and a dozen naval security teams, toward the main hangar. "They're going to board us," Than said unnecessarily. "All hands, combat alert. Prepare to repel boarders." The first Thunderhawk smashed through the hangar's atmospheric containment field, its last cannons raking the interior and cutting down the stormtrooper firing line before they could establish proper positions. Then the assault ramps dropped and the Space Marines emerged. Stormtrooper Commander Ven had fought pirates, rebels, and even Wookiee berserkers. Nothing had prepared him for this. The warriors who stormed from the gunship stood over 2 meters tall in armor that looked like it weighed as much as a speeder bike. Their weapons, massive bolt-action rifles that seemed too large for normal humans, spoke with thunderous reports that echoed through the hangar like artillery. A bolt round hit the stormtrooper beside Ven. It didn't just kill him, it exploded inside his torso, the massed reactive warhead detonating after penetrating the armor. The trooper's body came apart in a spray of gore and plastoid shrapnel. "Focus fire!" Ven screamed, and dozens of blaster bolts converged on the lead Space Marine. Brother Sergeant Grimaldus felt the enemy weapons strike his armor. Primitive energy weapons that his ceramite plating and personal force field shrugged off like rain. One shot found a weak point at his gorget, scoring the blessed ceramite but failing to penetrate. He advanced through the storm of fire, his bolt pistol barking precisely measured shots. Each round found a target. Each target fell in pieces. "For the Emperor!" The battle cry erupted from 30 transhuman throats as the Black Templars charged. It wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter. Stormtroopers died by the dozen, their armor worthless against weapons designed to kill creatures far more durable than unaugmented humans. The Space Marines moved with impossible speed for their size, their powered armor enhancing already superhuman reflexes. Chainswords screamed to life, tearing through bulkheads and bodies with equal ease. Commander Ven managed to trigger a thermal detonator and throw it directly at a Space Marine's chest. The explosion was powerful enough to kill everything within 5 meters. But the Black Templar merely staggered, his armor scorched but intact, and shot Ven through the head with casual precision. 10 minutes after the boarding began, the hangar was secure. 30 Space Marines stood among 200 corpses, their armor splattered with blood, but their formation intact. Not one had fallen. Captain Than watched through security monitors as the invaders advanced deeper into his station. His remaining defenders were falling back, trying to establish defensive positions, but it was hopeless. These warriors were butchering Imperial soldiers with contemptuous ease. His communications officer suddenly spoke up. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission. Audio only. It's in High Galactic, sir. Old Republic era. Put it through." The voice that emerged from the speakers was deep, harsh, and absolutely certain of its authority. It spoke High Galactic with a strange accent, but the words were clear enough. "I am Brother Sergeant Grimaldus of the Black Templars, 4th Company, assigned to Crusade Fleet Invictus. By authority of the God Emperor of Mankind and his Holy Inquisition, this station is now under Imperial compliance investigation. All personnel will disarm and assemble in designated areas. Resistance will be met with immediate execution. Compliance will be rewarded with the Emperor's mercy." Than's blood ran cold. God Emperor, another empire, another emperor, and they spoke of compliance like the Empire spoke of order. Absolute, unquestionable, backed by overwhelming force. "Compliance investigation?" Maras whispered. "What does that even mean?" Than understood immediately. It meant these invaders thought they were the legitimate authority. It meant they expected submission. It meant the galaxy had just encountered something it had never faced before. An empire that considered the Galactic Empire itself to be illegitimate. He opened a station-wide channel. "All Imperial personnel, cease fire. I repeat, cease fire. We're surrendering." It was the hardest order he'd ever given. But as he watched Space Marines tear through his best soldiers like they were training dummies, Captain Than made the only choice that would save any of his crew. Submission to these invaders and their God Emperor, whoever or whatever that was. The Imperium's first Imperial installation had fallen in 17 minutes. And deep in the station's communication logs, the message to Coruscant continued its journey through hyperspace, carrying word of an invasion force the Empire couldn't possibly understand and wouldn't. The Strategic Command Center on Coruscant received Captain Than's transmission 72 hours after the Narawan outpost fell silent. By then, 2 more Imperial installations in the unknown regions had gone dark. By the time intelligence analysts finished decrypting and analyzing the data burst, 3 Star Destroyers dispatched to investigate had failed to report back. Grand Moff Trakta stood in the Emperor's throne room deep within the Imperial Palace, watching holographic projections of the unknown vessels with growing unease. Beside him, a dozen other Moffs and Admirals studied the data in silence. At the center of the room, shrouded in shadows despite the chamber's lighting, sat Emperor Palpatine. 47 capital ships, Admiral Trell said quietly, each one outmassing our largest Star Destroyers. They've destroyed or captured 6 Imperial installations and 9 warships without sustaining measurable damage. They're advancing toward the Tingle Arm at sublight speeds, broadcasting what our linguists believe are religious texts. Religious texts? Moff Jared frowned. What kind of invasion force broadcasts sermons? One that believes it's on a holy mission. Trakta gestured, and the hologram shifted to show translated fragments. The linguistics team had spent days cross-referencing ancient languages from the Republic archives, finding strange parallels with high galactic root structures. They call themselves the Imperium of Man. They serve something called the God Emperor of Mankind, and they believe all human worlds must submit to his divine authority. The throne room fell silent. Several Moffs exchanged glances. Finally, Jerjerrod spoke what they were all thinking. They have their own emperor? So it would seem. Trakta brought up another data file. The survivors from Narawan provided intelligence before they were taken to what these invaders call a compliance camp. According to their reports, these warriors, they call them Space Marines, are genetically engineered super soldiers. 7 to 8 feet tall in armor, physically superior to even the most enhanced humans. They speak of serving for centuries, suggesting either extreme longevity or exaggeration for psychological effect. Admiral Trowell manipulated his data pad, highlighting the weapons analysis. Their technology is thus divergent from ours, inferior in some ways, superior in others. Their shields, they call them void shields, operate on different principles than our deflector screens, more resistant to sustained fire. Their energy weapons are less refined but more powerful. Raw force over precision. Can we defeat them? Palpatine's voice emerged from the shadows, each word dripping with malevolent curiosity. In open battle? Trowell hesitated. Unknown, Your Majesty. Their ships are formidable, but they number less than 50. We could mass hundreds of Star Destroyers against them. However, he trailed off. Speak. They're human, my lord. They claim to rule a human empire spanning 1,000,000 worlds. If even a fraction of that claim is true, this fleet may simply be an advance element, a probe. We could destroy them and invite retaliation from forces we cannot comprehend. Palpatine leaned forward slightly, his hooded eyes gleaming with dark interest. You believe their claims of a 1,000,000-world empire? I believe they believe it, Your Majesty. Religious zealotry of this magnitude doesn't emerge from small nations. These warriors think they represent an unstoppable holy crusade. That level of conviction suggests institutional support on a massive scale. Before Palpatine could respond, the chamber doors opened. A figure entered that made even the assembled Moffs straighten in automatic deference. Lord Vader strode into the throne room, his respirator breathing the only sound as he approached the Emperor's throne. You have investigated this threat personally? Palpatine asked. I have, my master. Vader's mechanical voice carried an unusual edge. Not quite concern, but something close to it. I interrogated the naval personnel extracted from the captured outpost before these Imperials relocated them. Their accounts are consistent. These invaders possess technology and doctrine, suggesting a civilization that has waged galactic-scale warfare for millennia. And their force sensitivity, Palpatine's question was sharp. They do not use the Force as we understand it. However, among their forces are individuals they call psychers, humans who manipulate what they describe as the warp through psychic power. The prisoners speak of these psychers with fear bordering on terror. They are not trained as Jedi or Sith, but they command abilities that suggest access to something. Whether it is the Force under a different name or another power entirely, I cannot determine without direct observation. Palpatine sat back, his fingers steepled. Fascinating. Another human empire, another emperor, another form of power. His smile was predatory. Perhaps they can be made to understand that there is only one true emperor in this galaxy. My lord, Vader said carefully, they may not agree. Then we will teach them. Your Majesty, a communications officer burst into the throne room, protocol forgotten in his urgency. Apologies, but we're receiving a transmission. It's from the unknown regions. They're demanding to speak with our emperor. Palpatine's smile widened. How delightfully presumptuous. Put it through. The holographic projector activated, displaying a figure that made even the battle-hardened Moffs draw back slightly. Inquisitor Helene Cord stood in full regalia, her armor inscribed with holy wards, her bionic eye glowing red, the inquisitorial rosette prominent on her chest. Behind her, a Black Templar Space Marine stood at parade rest, his presence turning the transmission into an implicit threat. I am Inquisitor Helene Cord of the Ordo Hereticus, speaking under authority of the God Emperor of mankind and his Holy Inquisition. Her voice was crisp, utterly devoid of deference. This transmission is directed to the leadership of what you call the Galactic Empire. We have completed our preliminary investigation of your civilization and have compiled our findings. She paused, and when she continued, her words carried the weight of absolute judgment. You are humans. This galaxy is populated by humans who have either lost contact with the Imperium during the Age of Strife or descend from human colonies established during the Dark Age of technology. Either way, you are subjects of the God Emperor by blood and right. However, you have fallen from his light. You worship no gods. Your leaders claim authority without divine mandate. You tolerate xeno-species as equals and even permit them to hold positions of authority. You have allowed technological innovation without proper machine god oversight. And most damningly, her bionic eye focused directly on where Palpatine sat, as if she could see through the hologram to the throne room itself. You permit unsanctioned psychers to practice their craft without inquisitorial supervision or sanctioning. This is heresy of the highest order. The penalty for unsanctioned psyker activity is death. The penalty for claiming divine authority without the God Emperor's blessing is death. The penalty for Xenos tolerance is death. The throne room was absolutely silent. However, the God Emperor is merciful to those who were lost through no fault of their own. Therefore, the Crusade Fleet Invictus offers you this singular opportunity: compliance. Submit your worlds to inquisitorial investigation, accept the imperial truth, purge the Xenos from positions of power, deliver all unsanctioned psychers to the Inquisition for evaluation. Acknowledge the God Emperor's supremacy over all humanity. She leaned forward, and her final words were delivered with the certainty of someone who had never once doubted her righteousness. Comply and be welcomed back into humanity's fold. Resist and be purged as heretics. You have one standard Terran week to respond. The God Emperor protects. The transmission ended. Grand Moff Trakta turned slowly to face Emperor Palpatine. Your Majesty, they just threatened to kill you and demanded we surrender the Empire. Palpatine began to laugh. It started as a low chuckle and built into a cackle that echoed through the throne room, filled with dark amusement and terrible power. Delightful, absolutely delightful. They believe their God Emperor superior to me. They believe we will simply submit. His laughter stopped abruptly, replaced by cold fury. Admiral Trowell, assemble the fleet. Vader, prepare our Inquisitorius and all available Sith artifacts. If these zealots wish to meet a true emperor, then we shall grant them an audience they will never forget. And our response to their ultimatum, Your Majesty? Trakta asked. Palpatine's smile was cruel. Tell them their God Emperor is a false idol, their compliance is rejected, and their crusade ends here. Then show them what true power looks like. The galaxy now had two empires, two emperors, and both believed submission was the only acceptable outcome. War was inevitable. King prey. Unlike the Crusade fleet's main warships with their proud Gothic architecture, the Silentium was built for a singular purpose: hunting psychers. Its hull was painted void black, inscribed with wards and hexagrammic symbols that caused even veteran Imperial Guardsmen to look away in discomfort. Inside its meditation chamber, Inquisitor Cord knelt before a small shrine to the God Emperor, her mind reaching out through the warp. What she sensed made her eyes snap open in alarm. Impossible, she whispered. Her acolyte, a young man with the Psyker's brand burned into his forehead, looked up from his monitoring station. Inquisitor? The warp here is wrong, calm, impossibly calm. Cord stood, her hands trembling slightly. In the Imperium, the warp seethes with demons, with chaos, with the screams of the damned. Here it's, she struggled for words, structured, ordered, as if something is imposing order on psychic reality itself. Is that not preferable, my lady? Preferable? Perhaps. Natural? Absolutely not. She activated the ship's Vox system. Captain, increase scanning range. Focus on psychic emanations. If this galaxy has unsanctioned psychers, the warp's unnatural stability suggests they number in the thousands or more. The answer came within hours. The Silentium's specialized sensors, designed to detect the psychic signatures of rogue psychers across entire star systems, began registering contacts. Not dozens, hundreds, scattered across Imperial space, concentrated in certain sectors, but unmistakably present. And they were completely unsanctioned, unsupervised, and unbound. Cord studied the tactical display with growing horror and righteous fury. Navigator Quintus, plot intercept courses for the nearest signatures. We begin the Emperor's work immediately. The first target was a small smuggler's outpost on the edge of Imperial-controlled space, the kind of place where questions weren't asked and cargo manifests were creatively interpreted. The Silentium dropped from warp transit directly above the station, and a single inquisitorial shuttle descended before the stunned inhabitants could even consider fleeing. Cord emerged flanked by two battle sisters from the Order of the Bloody Rose, warrior nuns of the Adeptus Sororitas, their power armor painted crimson and black, their bolters held ready. Behind them, a squad of stormtroopers in the black carapace armor of the Inquisitorial Tempestus moved with lethal precision. The outpost's overseer, a scarred human named Drex, approached with his hands raised. "Look, we don't want trouble. We've already heard about you Imperium types. We're not looking for a fight." "Where's the Psyker?" Cord's bionic eye swept the station, her psychic senses questing outward. "Psyker? I don't know what—" Cord drew her bolt pistol and fired in one smooth motion. The mass-reactive shell detonated inside Drex's leg, sending him screaming to the deck. "I will ask once more. Where is the unsanctioned Psyker? I can sense their presence. Every moment you delay is another limb." A young woman emerged from the shadows, her hands raised, dressed in worn spacer's clothing. Her eyes were defiant. "I'm what you're looking for. Leave them alone. They didn't know about me." Cord studied her with clinical interest. The woman's psychic signature was strong but untrained, wild. She wielded power without proper binding, without sanctioning, without understanding the danger she posed. "You manipulate the warp without training? Without supervision?" "I don't know what the warp is. I can move things with my mind, push people's thoughts. I've done it since I was a child. I'm not hurting anyone." "Not hurting anyone?" Cord's voice rose to a shout. "You tear holes in reality itself every time you use your power. Do you have any idea what you invite? What hungers in the dark places beyond our reality? Every unsanctioned Psyker is a doorway for demonic incursion." "Demons? You're insane. I'm just—" The woman made a gesture, and Cord felt the psychic push, an attempt to cloud her mind, to make her forget, to turn away. It was pathetically weak by inquisitorial standards, but the very attempt confirmed everything. "Psychic assault on an Inquisitor of the Holy Ordos." Cord's voice went cold. "The penalty is death. Battle Sister Celestia, execute the heretic." The Sororita's warrior raised her bolter, but the Psyker woman reacted with desperate instinct. Objects around the chamber began to float, to spin, gathering into a whirlwind of debris that she hurled at her executioners. The Battle Sister's power armor absorbed the impacts, but the display was undeniable. Raw telekinetic power, completely uncontrolled. What the woman didn't expect was Inquisitor Cord's own psychic might. The Inquisitor had been trained, sanctioned, and bound with psychic wards that made her power disciplined and focused. She reached out through the warp and simply shut down the woman's ability like turning off a light switch. The debris clattered to the floor. The Psyker woman gasped, clutching her head. "What did you—" "I can't—" Null field psychic suppression, one of many techniques you would have learned had you been properly sanctioned. Cord nodded to the Battle Sisters. "Take her to the holding cells. She will be evaluated. If her soul is pure, she may yet serve the Emperor. If not—" The woman was dragged away, screaming about freedom and justice and rights. Cord ignored it. She'd heard such protests 1,000 times. The work of the Inquisition was never pleasant, but it was always necessary. But as the Silentium departed the station, Cord's unease grew. That woman's power, unstructured as it was, reminded her of something. Of the reports about the Jedi and Sith mentioned in the intelligence gathered from captured Imperial installations. Psykers who called themselves something else, who wielded power through philosophy rather than Imperial sanctioning. Her fears were confirmed 3 days later when they intercepted a vessel fleeing an Imperial patrol. The ship's crew surrendered immediately, but the passenger in the hold was something else entirely. He wore simple robes, carried a cylindrical device on his belt, and radiated psychic power like a beacon. His name was Devon Mur, a failed Jedi initiate who'd fled the Purge and hidden in the Outer Rim for years. When the Inquisitorial stormtroopers entered his chamber, he ignited his lightsaber, a blue blade of pure energy that hummed with barely contained power. "I won't go quietly," Devon said, falling into a defensive stance. "I've run from one empire. I can run from another." The lead stormtrooper raised his hellgun. "Surrender, Psyker. You cannot." Devon moved with force-enhanced speed, his blade cutting through the stormtrooper's carapace armor like it was paper. The last bolts from the squad's weapons splashed against an invisible barrier, the force protecting its wielder from harm. In seconds, 3 stormtroopers were dead, and the others were retreating. Then Sister Celestia entered, firing her bolter in controlled bursts. The mass reactive shells weren't simple energy. They were physical projectiles that detonated. Devon's force barrier slowed them, but couldn't stop them entirely. One shell clipped his shoulder, exploding and sending him spinning to the deck. Before he could recover, Inquisitor Cord was there, her force staff crackling with psychic power. She struck not at his body, but at his connection to the power he wielded. Through the warp, she attacked his psychic defenses. Devon screamed as foreign energy invaded his connection to the Force. It felt wrong, burning, aggressive, hateful in ways the dark side wasn't. The Force was balance, light, and dark. This was something else entirely. Chaos. Cord subdued him through sheer psychic might and decades of training. When he lay broken on the deck, barely conscious, she stood over him with something approaching respect. You are trained, disciplined. Your power is structured through philosophy and meditation. She crouched beside him. In another life, you might have been sanctioned, but you served no emperor. You acknowledge no authority, and that makes you the most dangerous kind of heretic, one who believes his own righteousness justifies everything. Devon looked up at her, blood running from his nose. The Force isn't what you think. It's not chaos. It's life itself. Life itself? Cord's laugh was bitter. I have seen life. It screams in the warp. It begs for death. The only thing that protects humanity from the darkness is structure, hierarchy, and the God Emperor's divine will. Your Force is just another name for the warp, and every psyker who touches it without proper binding is a weapon pointed at humanity's throat. She stood, signaling for restraints. You will tell me everything about these Jedi and Sith, every technique, every training method, every hidden enclave, and when you're done, the Inquisition will purge this galaxy of every single unsanctioned psyker, no matter what they call themselves. Devon was dragged away to the Black Ship's interrogation chambers, his screams echoing through the corridors. And across the Tingle Arm, the Inquisition's work had only just begun. For every Force-sensitive hidden in the shadows, every surviving Jedi, every dark side adept, every Force cult and forgotten tradition, the Imperium had come with millennia of experience hunting their kind, and they had never ever failed to purge heresy from the galaxy. The Rebel Alliance cell on Heron Minor operated from an abandoned mining facility, monitoring Imperial supply routes and preparing for hit-and-run strikes. When Commander Sila Voss received word of the new threat from the unknown regions, her first reaction was cautious optimism. Another empire, she studied the fragmented intelligence reports with her command staff gathered around the tactical display. Maybe they'll be too busy fighting each other to hunt us. Captain Torin, her chief intelligence officer, shook his head. Ma'am, you need to read the full report. These aren't liberators. He struggled for words. They're worse than the Empire. Worse than Palpatine? Lieutenant Kess scoffed. That's not possible. They call non-humans Xenos. They exterminate alien species as policy. Torin brought up translated excerpts from captured Imperium broadcasts. They view any human who cooperates with aliens as a heretic deserving execution. And ma'am, our alliance is built on cooperation between species. The room fell silent. The Rebel Alliance's greatest strength was its diversity. Humans, Bothans, Mon Calamari, Twi'leks, Wookiees, and dozens of other species united against tyranny. If these Imperium forces truly believed in human supremacy backed by religious fanaticism, then the rebellion represented everything they'd seek to destroy. Surely they can be reasoned with, Voss said, though her voice lacked conviction. Once they understand the Empire's tyranny, her words were cut off by alarms. The facility's long-range sensors, calibrated to detect Imperial patrol craft, were registering something massive in orbit, something that had appeared without any hyperspace signature, as if it had simply torn through reality itself. All personnel to combat stations, Voss ordered, but she knew it was futile. The base had light defensive weapons meant to deter pirates, not engage capital ships. The vessel in orbit was an inquisitorial cruiser, smaller than the fleet's main battle barges, but still formidable. Its scanning arrays swept the planet's surface, and within the Silentium's command center, Inquisitor Cord studied the results with interest. A military installation, not Imperial design. She enhanced the readings. Multiple species detected, humans and Xenos working together. Her disgust was palpable. Navigator, hold position. Prepare a planetary assault. This heresy must be cleansed. But before the Imperium could launch its attack, another vessel dropped from hyperspace, an Imperial Star Destroyer, the Relentless, pursuing the rebel cell they'd been tracking for months. Captain Nevik saw the strange vessel in orbit and immediately went to battle stations. Unknown ship, you are in Imperial space. Identify yourself immediately, or... The Silentium's response was a lance strike that carved through the Star Destroyer's forward shields and melted 100 meters of hull plating. The Imperial vessel's bridge erupted in chaos as damage reports flooded in. "Return fire! All batteries!" Nevik screamed. Turbo lasers hammered the inquisitorial cruiser, and for the first time the Imperium's void shield strained under sustained bombardment. The Star Destroyer was smaller than the cruiser, but it was fast and its crew was experienced. Emerald energy beams played across the Silentium's shields, forcing the Imperium vessel to maneuver defensively. On the planet's surface, Commander Voss watched the orbital battle with stunned disbelief. "They're fighting each other." "Orders, ma'am," Kess asked. Voss's mind raced. The enemy of my enemy. But were these newcomers enemies or something far worse? "Monitor the battle. Prepare for evacuation if either side wins. And send an emergency transmission to High Command. They need to know about this." The battle raged for 20 minutes. The Star Destroyer's superior numbers of weapon systems versus the Silentium's heavier shields and more powerful individual guns. Eventually, the Imperium vessel's shields collapsed under the sustained assault, and lance batteries went offline. But before Captain Nevik could press his advantage, drop pods launched from the crippled cruiser. "Boarding craft!" The tactical officer's voice was shrill with panic. "They're launching boarding craft while we're still engaged." Nevik had faced rebel boarding parties before. Dangerous but manageable. What he wasn't prepared for was the drop pods punching through his deflector screens like they weren't there, using brute force and armor plating to survive the descent. They smashed into the Star Destroyer's hull, cutting through with thermal charges, and disgorged their cargo directly into the ship's corridors. 20 Black Templars in full combat armor materialized in the Relentless's hangar bay. The garrison of stormtroopers and naval security opened fire immediately, but they might as well have been shooting at Durasteel walls. Brother Castellan Draken led the assault, his power sword crackling with energy as he carved through blast doors and defenders alike. "For the Emperor! Purge the heretics!" Captain Nevik sealed the bridge and watched through security monitors as his ship was systematically conquered from within. Space Marines moved through the corridors with terrifying efficiency, clearing sections in minutes that should have taken hours to secure. His crew fought bravely but uselessly. "All hands, this is the captain." Nevik's voice was steady, despite his despair. "Initiate self-destruct sequence. Authorization, Nevik 77 Black." The computer acknowledged and alarms began wailing throughout the ship. Nevik had 10 minutes to evacuate, but he had no intention of running. He watched as the Space Marines breached the bridge level, cutting through security with chains, words, and bolt fire. His final transmission was to the planet below. "Rebel forces, this is Imperial Star Destroyer Relentless. The enemy is worse than you know. They don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They purge. Warn your..." The transmission cut off as Brother Castellan Draken's power sword pierced the bridge door. Nevik drew his blaster pistol, knowing it was useless, and fired anyway. The bolts splashed harmlessly off ceramite armor. The last thing he saw was the skull-faced helmet of a Black Templar before the power sword ended his life. Draken heard the self-destruct alarm and immediately understood. "All units, extraction! The heretics would rather die than face judgment." The Space Marines fought their way back to the drop pods, launching from the dying Star Destroyer moments before the reactor overloaded. The explosion lit up Heron Miner's orbit like a miniature sun, vaporizing the Relentless and sending the damaged Silentium spinning away, its void shields barely absorbing the detonation's edge. On the planet, Commander Voss watched the fireball fade and made a decision she never thought she'd make. Get me a secure channel to the nearest Imperial installation. Maximum encryption. Ma'am, Torrin looked shocked. We're going to contact the Empire. We just watched an Imperial captain choose death over capture by these fanatics. If they scare the Empire that badly, she met his eyes, then they're a threat to everyone. Human, alien, Empire, rebellion. None of it matters to them. We're all heretics in their eyes. The channel opened, and a shocked Imperial officer appeared on the hologram. This is a rebel transmission. How did you... Shut up and listen, Voss interrupted. There's a new threat in the galaxy. They just destroyed the Relentless, and they're likely coming for my position next. They don't distinguish between Empire and Rebellion. They want all of us dead or compliant to their God Emperor. I'm sending you tactical data and combat recordings. The Imperial officer's face hardened as he reviewed the data. Why are you telling us this? Because in an hour, maybe less, they're going to land troops on this planet. My people can't stop them. Your people couldn't stop them. But maybe if we share intelligence, we can figure out how to fight them. It was the most unlikely alliance in galactic history. Rebels and Imperials trading information about a common enemy. As Commander Voss evacuated her base and Imperial reinforcements scrambled toward Heron Minor, both sides understood a terrible truth. The galaxy's two great powers had been fighting each other for years, locked in an ideological struggle for freedom versus order. Now something had arrived that rejected both philosophies utterly. The Imperium of Man didn't care about the Empire's order or the Rebellion's freedom. It cared only about compliance to the God Emperor's will and the purging of everything that didn't meet their definition of human purity. When the Imperium's drop troops landed on Heron Minor 3 hours later, they found an abandoned base and no targets to purge. But they did find something else, evidence that their enemies had cooperated, shared intelligence, and escaped together. Inquisitor Cord stood in the abandoned command center, reading the data logs, and her expression grew grim. They're adapting already, learning to work together against us. Does it matter? Brother Castellan Draken asked. They are heretics all. Whether they fight separately or together, the Emperor's judgment is inevitable. Perhaps, Cord said quietly, but united enemies are more dangerous than divided ones. We may have underestimated this galaxy's capacity for pragmatic cooperation. She was right to be concerned. Across the galaxy, encrypted channels buzzed with impossible conversations. Rebel cells contacted Imperial governors. Mon Mothma and Admiral Akbar reviewed intelligence provided by Imperial defectors. Even some Imperial Moffs quietly suggested that Palpatine's obsession with crushing the rebellion might need to be postponed. The Imperium had done what years of warfare couldn't, give the Galactic Empire and Rebel Alliance a reason to consider not destroying each other. At least not until they dealt with the fanatics who wanted to destroy them both. The Imperial fortress world of Beltar 9 held strategic importance for supply routes into the core. When the Crusade fleet Invictus arrived in orbit, the planet's garrison numbered 200,000 Imperial Army troopers, 300 AT-ATs, 6 Star Destroyers in orbital defense positions, and enough firepower to repel a full Rebel assault. It took the Imperium 4 hours to break them. Chapter Master Mordred stood on the bridge of the Invictus, watching the orbital bombardment lance batteries tear apart the Star Destroyers with methodical precision. The Imperial vessels tried to maneuver, tried to concentrate fire, but they were facing warships designed for void combat against enemies who'd perfected orbital warfare over 10,000 years. The Star Destroyers died one by one, their crews never even damaging the Crusade fleet's void shields. Landing sites secured, reported Brother Captain Aldrich of the 3rd Company. Drop pods away. From orbit, the drop pods looked like meteors, hundreds of them streaking through Beltar 9's atmosphere trailing fire. Anti-aircraft batteries opened up, filling the sky with turbo laser fire. But the pods were designed to survive atmospheric entry under fire from far worse weapons. They plummeted past the defensive screen and slammed into the surface with earth-shaking impacts. Imperial Commander Grav watched from his command bunker as the first wave hit. He'd prepared for Rebel commandos, maybe even some kind of alien assault. What emerged from the smoking craters defied comprehension. Space Marines, 3 full companies, 300 Angels of Death, launched directly from orbit into a hot landing zone. They emerged from their pods firing, bolt weapons barking as they established immediate perimeter security. 8 ATs lumbered forward to engage, their massive cannons tracking the armored giants. Brother Sergeant Tarkus of the Devastator Squad raised his Lascannon, a man-portable weapon that required a tripod mount for normal humans. He braced it against his pauldron and fired. The laser beam punched through the AT-AT's forward armor plating and cored through its power generators. The walker's legs locked up and it crashed to the ground like a toppled building. "Advance!" Captain Aldrich's order was unnecessary. His brothers were already moving, using the fallen walker as cover, while heavy weapons teams eliminated the remaining AT-ATs with precision fire. Missile pods, Lascannons, and plasma guns turned the Imperial armor into scrap metal faster than Grov could process. "Deploy the ground troops! All companies, engage!" 200,000 Imperial Army soldiers surged from their bunkers and fortifications. They were disciplined, well-trained veterans who'd fought pirates and rebels across a dozen worlds. They opened up with everything: blaster rifles, heavy repeaters, missile launchers, even thermal detonators hurled into the Space Marine formations. The Black Templars charged directly into the firestorm. Brother Tarkus felt last bolts strike his armor, each impact like a gentle tap. His ceramite plating, blessed and consecrated in the forged temples of Mars, ablated the energy weapon's power. His personal shield generator caught the heavier shots. A missile struck near his position, the explosion powerful enough to kill a dozen normal men. He stumbled slightly from the concussion, recalibrated, and continued advancing. Behind him, Brother Grimaldus led his assault squad into the Imperial lines with jump packs screaming. They soared over the defensive positions and landed in the middle of a company-strength formation, their chainswords already revving. What followed wasn't a battle, it was a massacre. Each Space Marine was worth dozens of normal soldiers. They moved through the Imperial ranks like threshers through wheat. Grimaldus's power fist caved in a soldier's chest with a single punch. His bolt pistol barked 3 times, each shot claiming a life. A brave Imperial sergeant fired an entire magazine into Grimaldus's chest at point-blank range. The Space Marine's armor held. Grimaldus casually backhanded the sergeant, the blow launching him 3 meters through the air with a broken neck. "Is this the best your galaxy offers?" Grimaldus voxed to his squad. "They die like children." But even as the Black Templars carved through the Imperial lines, they encountered something unexpected: the Force. Inquisitor Armon had sensed it during the preliminary scans, a psychic presence on the planet's surface. Now, as the battle raged, a robed figure emerged from the command bunker. He was an Inquisitor, one of Palpatine's personal agents, trained in the dark side of the Force. His name was Tremaine, and he'd been hunting Jedi for years. He saw the carnage and understood immediately that conventional weapons were useless. Drawing on the dark side, Tremaine raised his hands and unleashed Force lightning. The crackling blue energy leapt across the battlefield and struck Captain Aldrich directly in the chest. The Space Marine's armor system sparked, and he stumbled, as electricity coursed through his enhanced physiology. His armor's machine spirit screamed warnings, and several systems went offline. "Psyker!" Aldrich roared, his voice carrying across the Vox network. "All units, Psyker target designated. Chaplain Mordred, we require sanctioning." From the second wave of drop pods came Chaplain Cassius, recognizable by his skull-faced helmet and the sacred Crozius Arcanum he carried, a power weapon shaped like a mace, crackling with holy energy. He advanced toward Tremaine with single-minded purpose, bolt pistol firing in controlled bursts. Tremaine deflected the shots with the Force, creating a barrier that the bolt rounds exploded against. He'd faced Jedi lightsabers, survived assassination attempts by rebel agents, and personally executed 12 Force-sensitive children. One armored brute wouldn't. Chaplain Cassius slammed into the Force barrier with his Crozius, and something broke. The blessed weapon, consecrated in the name of the God Emperor, and inscribed with psychic wards by the most powerful sanctioned psychers in the Imperium, tore through the Force defense like it was paper. Tremaine barely managed to dodge, the Crozius missing his head by centimeters. "Impossible!" Tremaine gasped. "No one breaks through the Force that easily." "Your Force is merely the warp by another name." Cassius's voice boomed from his helmet's Vox speakers. and the Emperor's blessed weapons were forged to slay demons. You are nothing. They dueled across the battlefield, Tremaine using every dark side technique he knew, force pushes and lightning in precognition, while Cassius pressed forward with transhuman strength and millennia of the Imperium's accumulated anti-psyker doctrine. The chaplain's armor bore scorch marks and dents, but he never slowed. Finally, Cassius feinted with his Croceus, and when Tremaine moved to block, he fired his bolt pistol at point-blank range. The mass reactive shell detonated in Tremaine's chest. The Inquisitor fell, his connection to the dark side severing as death claimed him. Cassius stood over the body, raised his Croceus to the sky, and his voice carried across every Vox channel in the Crusade fleet. So perish all unsanctioned psychers, the Emperor protects. 300 Space Marine voices roared in response. The Emperor protects! The sound was amplified through their armor's external speakers, turned into a war cry that shook the very air. Imperial army soldiers broke and ran. They'd watched their walkers destroyed, their comrades butchered, and now even their force-wielding Inquisitor lay dead. This wasn't an enemy they could defeat. This was a force of nature. Commander Graf knew he had only one option left. All batteries target the enemy landing zones. Maximum bombardment. Bring down the orbital defense platform's guns on those coordinates. The orbital cannons, massive weapons designed to destroy capital ships, rotated toward the surface and began firing. Lance strikes powerful enough to crack open frigates hammered the battlefield, turning entire city blocks into molten craters. Several Space Marines vanished in direct hits, their armor vaporizing under sustained bombardment. But Chapter Master Mordred had anticipated this. Thunderhawks begin assault pattern Omega. Terminators teleport to coordinates designated. The sky filled with Thunderhawk gunships, their underslung Lascannons and heavy bolters strafing the orbital cannon emplacements. And deep in the command bunker, reality twisted as Terminator squads materialized via teleportation technology. These were the Chapter's elite, veterans encased in tactical dreadnought armor, each suit weighing as much as a speeder bike and armed with storm bolters and power fists. Brother Ancient Thaddeus, wearing Terminator plate that had survived battles for over 600 years, simply walked through the bunker's blast doors. His combi bolter chattered, filling the corridors with explosive death. Grav's personal guard died in seconds, their cover meaningless against weapons that fired tank-killer rounds. Grav drew his service blaster with shaking hands. Stay back. I am an Imperial commander. You demand nothing. Thaddeus's voice rumbled like an avalanche. You surrendered this world the moment you fired upon the God Emperor's chosen. Your false empire dies today. The power fist crushed Grav's skull like an egg. Above the battlefield, the Rebel Alliance surveillance ship Defiance watched everything through long-range sensors. Captain Merrick could barely believe what his instruments were telling him. 300 soldiers, 300 against 200,000, and they won. His tactical officer was pale. Sir, we need to warn High Command. If the Imperium deploys these Space Marines in significant numbers, there's no ground force in the galaxy that can stop them. Get me a channel to General Dodonna. Emergency priority. Merrick stared at the feeds showing black-armored giants striding through the ruins of an Imperial fortress world. The galaxy needs to understand what we're facing. These aren't soldiers. They're not even human anymore. They're something else. Something we're not prepared for. On Beltar 9's surface, the fighting had ended. 300 Space Marines stood victorious among tens of thousands of corpses. They'd taken casualties. 19 brothers killed by concentrated fire or orbital bombardment. 37 wounded. But they'd achieved complete victory in 4 hours against overwhelming numerical odds. Chapter Master Mordred surveyed the battlefield from the captured command bunker. Begin compliance procedures. All surviving personnel are to be interrogated regarding the false emperor and his heretical regime. Establish a garrison and commence conversion of manufacturing facilities to Imperium standards. And the Xenos lovers in orbit? Captain Aldrich asked, gesturing to where the Defiance lurked at the system's edge. Let them run. Let them spread word of what they've witnessed. Mordred's smile was hidden behind his helmet, but his voice carried dark satisfaction. Let them tell this galaxy that the Imperium's angels of death have come. Let them understand that resistance is futile and compliance is the only path to survival. The Defiance engaged its hyperdrive and fled, carrying recordings of the battle that would horrify military analysts across the galaxy. The Black Templars had demonstrated not just superior firepower, but superior tactics, superior warriors, and a doctrine refined over 10 millennia of constant warfare. The galaxy was beginning to understand. The Imperium of Man didn't just have bigger ships and better weapons, they had space marines, and nothing the galaxy had ever faced, not clone troopers, not battle droids, not stormtroopers, could stand against them in ground combat. The Angels of Death had arrived, and they would not be stopped. Lexicanum Hadrian of the Blood Ravens. Chapter stood in the Invictus's meditation chamber, his psychic hood humming with barely contained power. As one of the fleet's librarians, sanctioned psychers who served as the chapter's warrior mystics, he'd been trained to sense disturbances in the warp across entire star systems. What he sensed in this galaxy disturbed him profoundly. The warp here is structured, he reported to Inquisitor Cord via VoxLink. It flows like a river with defined banks rather than the churning sea we know. There's an underlying current of energy that seems to bind all living things together. Heretical psyker doctrine, Cord replied immediately. The unsanctioned wielders here have developed their own understanding of the warp, divorced from imperial truth. This makes them more dangerous, not less. But Hadrian wasn't convinced. In his decades of service, he'd touched the warp thousands of times, always feeling the presence of demons lurking in its depths, waiting for any psyker to slip so they could tear through reality and claim souls. Here the darkness was different. Not absent, he could feel malevolence in the depths, but constrained, bound by rules he didn't understand. His meditation was interrupted by alarms. The fleet's sensors had detected a small vessel approaching under power, broadcasting a message in Trade Basic. Imperium forces, this is Master Q Ron of the Jedi Order. I seek parley under flag of truce. I am alone and unarmed. I believe we have much to discuss. Chapter Master Mordred's response was immediate. Destroy the vessel. No mercy for unsanctioned psychers. Wait, Inquisitor Cord's voice carried authority even a chapter master had to acknowledge. An opportunity. This Jedi comes willingly. We can learn their techniques, understand their heresy. Lexicanum Hadrian, you will interrogate this psyker, discover the source of their power. 20 minutes later, Kuran stood in the Invictus's detention chamber, surrounded by Black Templars with bolters trained on him. The Jedi Master was old, his beard white, his robes worn, but his presence in the Force was like a beacon, calm, centered, radiating peace in a way that seemed impossible given his circumstances. Hadrian entered, his psychic hood marking him as what he was. Kuran's eyes widened slightly. A Force sensitive. I thought your kind might exist among these Imperium forces, though I sensed something different about you. I am a librarian of the Adeptus Astartes, sanctioned by the Emperor's Inquisition and bound by the strictest psychic disciplines. Hadrian circled the Jedi slowly. You wield the warp without sanction, without binding, without proper control. You are a threat to every human soul within 1,000 light years. The warp? Kuran looked genuinely confused. I don't understand. I wield the Force, the energy field that connects all living things. It has a light side and a dark side, and Jedi are trained to follow the light. Show me. Kuran hesitated, then extended his hand. A data slate on the table rose smoothly into the air, floating between them with gentle precision. The telekinesis was controlled, refined, elegant. Nothing like the raw psychic might Hadrian was accustomed to seeing. But when Hadrian looked beyond the physical into the psychic realm, he saw something that shocked him. The Jedi wasn't drawing power from the warp as he understood it. Instead, there was a vast field of energy that permeated everything. A network connecting every living being, every conscious mind, into a single interconnected web. The Jedi drew from this field, guided it, but didn't dominate it the way Imperial psychers dominated the warp. Impossible, Hadrian whispered. You're not burning your soul to fuel your power. You're channeling something that already exists. Of course, Kuran lowered his hand, and the data slate settled gently back to the table. The Force is not something we create or consume. It simply is. We are conduits, not sources. Hadrian felt a moment of genuine uncertainty. In the Imperium, every psyker risked their soul each time they touched the warp. Demonic possession, mutation, or simply burning out from psychic overload were constant threats. Sanctioning helped. Binding rituals and psychic wards provided protection, but the danger never vanished. Yet this old man wielded power with the casual ease of someone lighting a candle. "Demonstrate your dark side," Hadrian demanded. Kuran's expression hardened. "I am a Jedi. We do not touch the dark side willingly. It is the path to corruption, anger, hatred, suffering. It consumes those who embrace it." "Then you acknowledge there is darkness in your power." "There is darkness in all things. The Force includes both light and dark, life and death, creation and destruction. The choice of which to follow defines us." Before Hadrian could respond, the chamber doors opened and another figure entered, one that made even the Black Templars step back instinctively. Inquisitor Cord had brought one of her most dangerous assets, a Primaris Psyker named Severina, whose power was so immense that she required constant supervision and psychic restraints even when idle. Severina's eyes were milky white, her skull inscribed with binding runes. When she entered, the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees and frost formed on metal surfaces. "The heretic Psyker," she said, her voice echoing strangely. "Let me test his soul." She reached out through the warp, not gently like Kuran's Force connection, but like a battering ram. Her psychic assault was designed to shatter mental defenses and lay bare a person's innermost thoughts. Kuran gasped and staggered as foreign energy invaded his consciousness. But then something unexpected happened. The Force responded, not with aggression, but with balance. Kuran's connection to the light side created a barrier that Severina's psychic might couldn't simply crush. It bent, it yielded, but it didn't break. The Jedi Master fell to one knee, blood running from his nose, but his mind remained his own. "Fascinating," Severina said, withdrawing her assault. "He doesn't resist like a psyker. He absorbs and redirects, like water flowing around stone." Kuran slowly stood, his legs shaking. What was that? That wasn't the Force. That was something else. Something angry. "That was the warp," Hadrian said quietly. "The psychic realm that underlies reality. Where we draw our power. Where demons hunger for souls." "Demons?" Kuran looked genuinely alarmed. "You draw power from a realm inhabited by demons? We are sanctioned, trained, bound with wards and rituals to resist possession." Hadrian studied the Jedi with new respect. "But your Force protects you differently. It's not armor against the darkness. It's integration with something that exists in balance." Inquisitor Cord had been watching silently. Now she spoke. "Librarian Hadrian, your assessment?" Hadrian chose his words carefully. "The Psyker before us wields genuine power, but it operates on principles fundamentally different from Imperial doctrine. His Force may be the warp as it exists in this galaxy. Calmed, structured, bound by natural laws rather than churning chaos. If so, his techniques could have applications. You suggest we don't execute him?" Cord's tone was dangerous. "I suggest we learn. The Emperor teaches that knowledge is power. Understanding how these Jedi maintain their sanity while wielding psychic abilities without proper sanctioning could benefit the Imperium." It was a bold argument, one that flew in the face of inquisitorial doctrine. Unsanctioned psychers were always executed. No exceptions, no mercy. But Hadrian had glimpsed something in his exchange with Kuran, a different path, one that might explain why this galaxy's psychers hadn't already torn reality apart with demonic incursions. Kuran, recovering from Severina's assault, spoke carefully. "I came here to offer understanding. The Jedi Order has fallen, destroyed by the Empire we both oppose, but the Force remains in those who wield it. If your Imperium truly seeks to dominate this galaxy, you'll encounter more Force sensitives, some light, some dark. Understanding the difference could save lives. Or it could corrupt the Imperium with heretical doctrine, Cord countered. But there was calculation in her voice now, not just zealotry. However, the Inquisition has always sought to understand threats before eliminating them. You will remain in custody. You will teach Lexiconum Hadrian everything about these Jedi techniques. And if we determine your force is compatible with Imperial sanctioning protocols. She didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. The Imperium might try to incorporate force wielders into its structure, just as it had integrated countless other human powers over 10 millennia. But across the galaxy, on the volcanic world of Mustafar, another encounter was taking place. A dark-side adept named Valen Dreth had sensed the Imperium's arrival and traveled to investigate. What he found was an abandoned world the Crusade fleet had cleansed of Imperial presence, and a single figure standing among the ruins. Chaplain Cassius knelt in prayer before a makeshift shrine to the God Emperor, his Crozius laid reverently before him. He sensed the dark-side user's approach before Dreth revealed himself. "You're like the Inquisitor I killed on Beltar 9, Cassius said without turning. "I can feel the taint on your soul. Corruption. Darkness." "The dark side is power," Dreth replied, his eyes glowing amber. "Something your primitive religion can't understand." He unleashed force lightning, raw dark energy that should have killed any normal human instantly. Cassius turned and raised his Crozius, and the blessed weapon absorbed the lightning like a grounding rod. The chaplain advanced through the storm of energy, his armor's machine spirit howling warnings, but holding against the assault. "Your power comes from emotion, from hate." Cassius's voice was a condemning roar. "It is the same corruption we face in the warp. Different name, same taint." Dreth tried to crush Cassius with the Force, but the chaplain's faith was absolute. In Warhammer 40K, belief had power. The Emperor himself was sustained by the faith of quadrillions. Cassius's conviction created a psychic fortress that even the dark side struggled to penetrate. They clashed physically. Dreth's force-enhanced speed against Cassius's transhuman reflexes in power armor. The dark side adept was fast, skilled, dangerous, but he was still fundamentally human. Cassius was a space marine, biologically engineered to be superior in every way. When the Crozius finally connected, it shattered Dreth's force barrier and his spine simultaneously. As Dreth lay dying, Cassius stood over him. "Your power is real, but it makes you weak, dependent on emotion, corrupted by your own darkness. The Emperor's strength comes from discipline, not passion, from faith, not fury." Dreth's last words were a gurgled laugh. "You don't understand. The dark side always wins." But he was wrong. The Imperium had spent 10,000 years fighting chaos, fighting demons, traitors, and corrupted psychers who drew power from the warp's darkest depths. The dark side, for all its power, was just another face of corruption, and the Imperium had refined the art of purging corruption to a brutal science. Back on the Invictus, Hadrian concluded his report to Inquisitor Cord. "The Force and the Warp are connected but different. Their light side resembles our sanctioned psychers, controlled, disciplined. Their dark side resembles chaos, corruption, emotional, consuming, corrosive. If we must face Force wielders, we should prioritize eliminating the dark side users and consider alternative approaches to the light side practitioners." It was a recommendation that would have been heretical mere weeks ago, but the Imperium had always been pragmatic beneath its zealotry. If Force wielders could be brought into compliance, trained in Imperial doctrine, bound with proper wards and sanctioning rituals. The galaxy's psychic warriors had just begun to understand each other, and both sides had learned something crucial. Neither power system was absolutely superior. The battle between Warp and Force would be won not by raw might, but by doctrine, discipline, and understanding. The warning came from Navigator Secundus, which side would adapt faster, and it sent a chill through every veteran of the Crusade fleet. His message was brief, urgent, and terrifying. "The rift, Emperor preserve us. The rift is still open." Chapter Master Mordred stormed into the navigation chamber, where the Navigator floated in his suspension tank, his third eye, the genetic mutation that allowed him to perceive the warp. bleeding from exposure to what he'd seen. "Explain." "The dimensional tear that brought us here, my lord. It should have sealed. Warp rifts are temporary, collapsing when transit is complete. But this one," the navigator's voice was raw with horror, "it's stable, growing, and something is coming through." Inquisitor Cord felt her blood turn to ice. In 10,000 years of Imperial history, stable warp rifts meant only one thing: demonic incursion. The ruinous powers, the chaos gods who dwelt in the warp's darkest depths, would see such a rift as an invitation, an opportunity to flood into real space and corrupt everything they touched. "How long until emergence?" she demanded. "Hours, maybe less. I can sense them. Bloodletters, plague bearers, the Neverborn gathering at the threshold." The navigator's third eye wept blood. "And something else, something vast. One of the great demons stirs." Mordred activated the fleet-wide Vox immediately. "All ships, Battle Alert Omega. Prepare for demonic incursion. Seal all non-essential sections. Activate Geller fields at maximum power. Chaplains to prayer stations. This is not a drill. Chaos comes." Across the Crusade fleet, alarms wailed, and veterans who'd faced every horror the galaxy could offer felt old fears resurface. Chaos, the one enemy that couldn't be reasoned with, couldn't be defeated permanently, could only be fought to eternal stalemate. And now they'd brought it with them into an unprepared galaxy. The rift tore open in the unknown regions, in the same nameless sector where the Imperium had first arrived. But this time, what emerged was fundamentally wrong. Ships appeared, but they were corrupt parodies of Imperial vessels, their hulls twisted into impossible geometries, bleeding metal and screaming faces embedded in the bulkheads. Chaos Space Marines, traitors who turned from the Emperor 10,000 years ago during the Horus Heresy, had followed the Crusade through the dimensional barrier. At their head was the warship Torment Eternal, flying the colors of the Wordbearers, one of the original traitor legions. On its bridge, Dark Apostle Marduk surveyed the new galaxy with eyes that glowed with unholy fire. A virgin galaxy, untouched by the gods' blessings. Billions of souls ripe for corruption. Behind him, demons materialized from the warp's bleeding edge. Bloodletters of Khorne, crimson-skinned killers with blade arms, and an insatiable hunger for violence. Plague bearers of Nurgle, rotting corpses animated by disease and entropy. Pink horrors of Tzeentch, cackling creatures of pure change and mutation. The Neverborn had come to feast, but something was wrong. The demons tried to fully manifest, to tear through into real space as they did in the Imperium's galaxy, and something resisted them. The Force, that underlying energy field that Kuran had described, acted like an immune system, pushing back against the fundamental wrongness of chaos. Demons materialized partially, flickering between solid and ethereal, their power diminished but still terrifyingly real. "The warp here fights us," a plague bearer burbled, its voice like drowning. "This reality has antibodies." "Then we'll infect it properly," Marduk growled. "Begin the rituals. We'll establish demonic anchors and corrupt this galaxy's very foundation. The dark gods will feast on worlds that have never known despair." The first world to feel chaos's touch was Renvar, an ice planet with a small research station monitoring ancient Jedi ruins. The Wordbearers arrived in orbit and began broadcasting a signal, not coherent language, but pure psychic corruption. Those who heard it felt their minds twist, their thoughts turning dark and hateful. At the research station, Dr. Mirren felt the change first. She'd been cataloging Jedi artifacts for years, hoping to understand the Force before the Empire's purge erased all knowledge. Now, as the signal washed over her mind, she felt something new. Anger. Beautiful, liberating anger at everything she'd ever endured. The Empire's restrictions, the Jedi's failures, her own inadequacies. "Why do we serve?" she asked her colleagues, her voice strange. "Why do we follow orders from those who only use us?" Within an hour, the entire research station had descended into violence. Colleagues murdered each other in fits of rage. Some tried to resist, felt the corruption eating at their sanity, and chose death over becoming whatever they were turning into. The few who survived long enough to see the landing craft descend were already beyond saving. Their eyes glowed red with Khorne's blessing, and they welcomed the Chaos Marines as liberators. But the signal spread beyond Renvar. It rippled through the Force itself, carrying corruption into the galaxy's psychic network. On Coruscant, Emperor Palpatine felt it immediately. A wrongness in the dark side, something foreign and malevolent that made even his centuries of Sith mastery seem like a child's toy. "What is this?" he hissed, his connection to the dark side recoiling from the touch of chaos. Lord Vader sensed it too, his mechanical body insulating him somewhat, but his Force sensitivity making him vulnerable in ways his armor couldn't protect. "Master, I feel hunger, infinite hunger. Something wants to consume everything." On Yavin 4, in the hidden rebel base, Mon Mothma collapsed during a strategy meeting. General Dodonna caught her, and when she looked up, her eyes were haunted. "I heard voices, hundreds of them, thousands, screaming, offering power, offering freedom from pain. They promised—" She couldn't finish the sentence, shaking with the effort of rejecting whatever had touched her mind. And in the Invictus's detention chamber, Kuran's eyes snapped open. No, this is wrong. The Force is screaming. Something is poisoning it. Something from beyond. Lexiconum Hadrian rushed to the Jedi Master's cell. "You sense the corruption?" "More than sense it. The Force connects all living things. But this isn't life. This is anti-life. It wants to consume, corrupt, destroy everything the Force represents." Kuran gripped the cell's bars, his calm demeanor shattered by genuine terror. "What did you bring with you?" "Our oldest enemy," Hadrian said grimly. "Chaos, the ruinous powers, 4 dark gods who dwell in the warp and corrupt everything they touch. We've fought them for 10,000 years across 1,000,000 worlds. They turn brother against brother, corrupt entire civilizations, birth daemons from pure malevolence. Can they be destroyed? No, only fought. Endlessly. Forever." Inquisitor Cord entered, her face set in grim determination. "Jedi, I'm releasing you. Temporarily. Your Force seems to resist chaos corruption better than our psychic defenses. We need every sanctioned psyker and every Force wielder to combat what's coming. You would trust me? I would use you. There's a difference." Cord's expression was hard. "The enemy of my enemy is not my friend. But when demons pour through reality's wounds, all of humanity must stand together or fall separately. Your philosophical objections to Imperial doctrine mean nothing if chaos consumes this galaxy." Before Kuran could respond, the Invictus shuddered. Not from weapons fire, but from something worse, a Geller field failure in Section 47. Without the protective field that kept the warp at bay, a small section of the ship was exposed to raw chaos energy. The crew inside had perhaps 30 seconds before they were killed, corrupted, or driven mad. Brother Sergeant Grimaldus led his squad into the compromised section, his armor's blessed machine spirit providing minimal protection against the psychic assault. What he found inside was nightmarish, crew members transforming into writhing mutants, their flesh bubbling with unnatural growth. And standing among them, a flickering figure of pure malevolence, a lesser demon of Tzeentch, cackling as it wove spells of mutation and change. "For the Emperor!" Grimaldus charged, his blessed bolter firing sanctified rounds. The demon shrieked as the blessed ammunition tore through its ethereal form, each impact causing it agony. But it didn't die, couldn't die permanently, because demons were immortal, killed demons simply returning to the warp to reform. Chaplain Cassius arrived with his Crozius blazing with holy light. "Back to the warp, Neverborn!" His blessed weapon struck the demon, and reality itself seemed to recoil. The creature screamed in 17 languages simultaneously before dissipating into nothingness. "Seal this section," Cassius ordered. "Burn everything. Purge it with flame. Even the smallest taint of chaos can spread if left unchecked." But even as the Black Templars contained the breach, more Geller field failures were being reported across the fleet. Chaos was testing their defenses, probing for weakness, seeking entry points. And on the worlds below, where the Imperium had established garrisons, cultists were beginning to emerge. Humans corrupted by the psychic signal, pledging themselves to dark powers they didn't understand. Inquisitor Cord activated a priority channel to the Crusade fleet and to every Imperial installation the Imperium had captured. Her message was broadcast in Trade Basic, so even the galaxy's native populations would understand. This is Inquisitor Helene Cord of the Ordo Malleus. I speak now not as your conqueror, but as your only hope of survival. A threat has entered this galaxy that makes our political differences meaningless. Chaos, a force of pure corruption and entropy, has followed us through the dimensional rift. It will corrupt your people, twist your reality, and consume your souls if left unchecked. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. The Galactic Empire, the Rebel Alliance, the criminal syndicates, the Force wielders, all of you face extinction if chaos is not stopped. The Imperium has fought this enemy for 10,000 years. We know its tactics, its weaknesses, how to resist corruption. Whether you accept Imperial compliance or not, you will need our knowledge to survive what comes next. It was the closest thing to an admission of guilt the Imperium had offered. They'd brought this threat with them, and now, the entire galaxy would pay the price unless they could seal the rift and purge the corruption before it spread too far. On Coruscant, Palpatine received the transmission and understood immediately that everything had changed. His plans to crush the Imperium, to prove his supremacy over their God Emperor, meant nothing if this chaos consumed his empire first. He reached out through the dark side, seeking to understand this new threat, and recoiled in horror at what he felt. The dark side was seductive, offering power through passion and freedom through strength. But chaos was something else entirely. It didn't seduce, it consumed. It didn't offer power, it took everything and left only ruin. Even the Sith lords of old would have fled from this corruption. For the first time in decades, Emperor Palpatine felt something he'd thought himself beyond: fear. And across the galaxy, in hidden bases and Imperial installations, on Republic worlds and neutral systems, people looked to the stars and saw them begin to flicker with unnatural colors. The warp was bleeding through, and chaos had come to claim a virgin galaxy. The true war was about to begin. The defense of Ord Mantell became the galaxy's first true test against chaos. The planet sat at a strategic junction between the unknown regions and the Mid-Rim. If it fell, chaos forces would have a clear path to densely populated systems. Both empires, both sides of every conflict, converged on this single world because losing it meant losing everything. The Imperium arrived first. Chapter Master Mordred deployed 3 full companies of Black Templars, supported by 10,000 Imperial Guardsmen and a battle group of naval vessels. They established defensive positions around Ord Mantell's primary starport and began fortifying against the coming storm. Then came the unexpected reinforcements. 6 Imperial Star Destroyers dropped from hyperspace, their commanders having received emergency authorization directly from Coruscant. They didn't communicate with the Imperium forces, didn't need to. The enemy was obvious. The Torment Eternal and its Chaos fleet were already entering the system, trailing warp corruption like a diseased comet. Admiral Iron commanded the Imperial task force from the bridge of the Executrix. He'd spent his career fighting rebels, pirates, and political rivals. Nothing had prepared him for what he saw through the viewport. Ships that defied geometry, their hulls crawling with demonic faces. Energy weapons that fired not plasma, but raw, screaming madness that corroded void shields through sheer wrongness. "All batteries, open fire," Iran ordered, his voice steady despite his terror. "For the Empire." The Crusade fleet's Lord Admiral Castigan heard the Imperial vessels engage and made a decision that would have been unthinkable a week ago. Support the locals, coordinate firing solutions, focus on the largest Chaos vessel. The 2 fleets, enemies by doctrine, temporary allies by necessity, hammered the Chaos warships with everything they had. Turbo lasers and lance batteries, ion cannons and nova cannons, all converged on the Torment Eternal. The corrupted battle barge's void shields buckled, then failed. Its hull began to crack. Dark Apostle Marduk felt his ship dying and laughed. You think destroying one vessel matters? We are eternal. We are legion. The gods will provide. He was right. As the torment eternal broke apart, the warp rift pulsed with violent energy and spat out reinforcements. More chaos vessels emerged, and with them came something that made even veteran Imperial captains pale: a greater demon. Bloodthirster Kabanda, a demon prince of Khorne, manifested in the void itself. It was impossible. Demons couldn't survive in vacuum, couldn't exist outside real space without flesh anchors or possessing mortal hosts. But the warp rift was bleeding so much corrupting energy into this system that the demon could sustain itself through sheer malevolence. The creature was the size of a frigate, wreathed in fire and brass armor, wielding an axe that burned with hatred made manifest. It roared, a sound that traveled through the void psychically, causing crew members across every ship to clutch their heads in agony, and charge the nearest Star Destroyer. The Valiant, a Victory-class destroyer, tried to maneuver away. Its turbo lasers scored direct hits, melting furrows in the demon's brass hide. Kabanda ignored the damage and crashed into the ship's hull like a living battering ram. Its axe tore through the bridge section, and the entire vessel began to list as atmosphere vented and systems failed. "Target that thing!" Irin was screaming now, all composure lost. "All ships, concentrate fire!" The combined fleet obeyed, and for a moment, the concentrated firepower actually drove the demon back. Its manifestation flickered, unable to sustain itself under such punishment. But then cultists aboard the dying chaos vessels began sacrificing themselves, their souls feeding the demon, and it solidified again with renewed fury. On the planet's surface, the situation was no better. Chaos drop pods slammed into Ord Mantell's industrial sectors, disgorging Chaos space marines and hordes of cultists. But they also brought demons, bloodletters manifesting with partially corporeal forms, plague bearers spreading disease through mere proximity. Brother Sergeant Grimaldus stood at the main defensive line, his squad forming a bulwark against the chaos tide. Bolters roared, each shell blessed by chaplains and inscribed with litanies of hatred. The bloodletters screamed as sanctified ammunition tore through their demonic essence. But for every one that fell, 2 more clawed their way into reality. "They're endless," one of his battle brothers voxed. "We kill them, and they just reform. Then we kill them again." Grimaldus fired until his bolter's heat sinks glowed red. "The Emperor protects. Hold this line." Behind the Black Templars, Imperial Guard regiments manned heavy weapons emplacements. Autocannons and lascannons poured fire into the demon horde, while commissars executed any soldier who showed signs of faltering. But even the Guard's iron discipline was cracking under the psychic assault. Men went mad, turned on their comrades, or simply collapsed weeping as chaos whispered promises and threats directly into their minds. Then impossibly, help arrived from an unexpected source. A rebel corvette, the Liberation, landed at the starport under heavy fire. Its boarding ramp dropped, and Mon Calamari soldiers rushed out, their organic weapons chattering. Behind them came something that made both Imperials and Imperium forces pause. A group of Force-sensitive survivors, not quite Jedi but trained enough to wield basic abilities. Leading them was Kuran, freed from his cell and armed with a lightsaber recovered from ancient ruins. He ignited the blue blade and advanced toward the demon horde, with the rebel soldiers forming ranks around him. Inquisitor Cord appeared at Grimaldus's position, her face twisted with disbelief and grudging respect. "The heretics came to help. The enemy of chaos is not our enemy," Grimaldus replied, echoing ancient Imperial doctrine. "Not today." Kuran reached out through the Force, feeling the corruption pressing against it like an infection. But the Force was vast, drawing from all living things in the galaxy. Against it, chaos was powerful but finite. He focused, drawing on every lesson the Jedi had taught about maintaining balance, and pushed back. The demons nearest him flickered, their manifestation weakening. It wasn't banishment. Only sanctified Imperial weapons and rituals could truly banish demons. But it was disruption. The Force wielders created gaps in the Chaos lines, and the Space Marines exploited them ruthlessly. Lexicanum Hadrian emerged from the Invictus's command Thunderhawk, his psychic hood blazing with power. He'd been studying the interaction between the Force and the warp, and now he put theory into practice. Drawing on the Force's structured energy while wielding the raw might of the warp through his sanctioned psyker training, he unleashed a hybrid assault that confused even the demons. "A new technique," he shouted to Kuran over the battle's roar. "Your Force stabilizes the warp. Use it." Together, sanctioned Imperial Psyker and unsanctioned Jedi Master, they wove a psychic barrier that temporarily sealed a section of the battlefield from demonic incursion. The effect lasted only minutes, but in those minutes, conventional forces could fight Chaos Space Marines without being overwhelmed by demons. In orbit, Admiral Iron made a desperate decision. All power to forward shields. Ramming speed. Target the warp rift itself. "Sir, that's suicide," his tactical officer protested. "Everything is suicide if that rift stays open." Iron activated ship-wide communications. "All hands abandon ship. Shuttles launch in 2 minutes. This is the Admiral's order." The Executrix accelerated toward the shimmering tear in reality. Its bow pointed directly at the wound through which chaos was bleeding into the galaxy. Lord Admiral Castigan saw what the Imperial vessel was attempting and understood immediately. "The Victorum will support the ramming action," Castigan ordered. "Close the rift before more can emerge. All crew to evacuation positions." 2 capital ships, 1 Imperial and 1 Imperium, sacrificed themselves in synchronized suicide runs. They plowed into the warp rift's edges, their reactors already overloading, their shields channeling every erg of power into maintaining structural integrity for precious seconds longer. The explosions were cataclysmic. Both ships detonated simultaneously, and the combined force disrupted the rift's stability. The dimensional tear began to collapse, and with it, the flow of chaos reinforcements stopped. Kabanda roared in fury as it felt the connection to the warp weakening, its manifestation becoming unsustainable. Chapter Master Mordred saw his opportunity. "All Thunderhawks converge on the greater demon. Terminator squads, prepare for close assault." Teleportation brought 20 Terminators directly into position around Kabanda. These were the chapter's absolute elite. Veterans who'd fought for centuries in the Imperium's bloodiest war zones. Their storm bolters fired sanctified rounds at point-blank range, while their power fists and thunderhammers struck with enough force to crack tank armor. Kabanda killed 3 Terminators with single swings of its burning axe, but the rest pressed forward with suicidal courage. Brother Ancient Thaddeus, his armor scarred by 600 years of war, drove his thunderhammer into the demon's knee joint. The consecrated weapon detonated on impact, and Kabanda staggered. "For the Emperor!" Thaddeus roared, striking again and again, each blow weakening the demon's manifestation. On the ground, Chaplain Cassius raised his Crozius and began reciting the Litany of Banishment, words of power that had been used to cast out demons since the Imperium's founding. His voice boomed across the battlefield, amplified by his armor speakers, and every warrior who heard it felt renewed strength. Kuran added his voice, not with Imperial prayers, but with Jedi meditations on balance and peace. The Force responded, creating harmony where chaos sought discord. The 2 philosophies, Imperial faith and Jedi serenity, combined into something greater than either alone. Kabanda screamed as the combined assault overwhelmed its ability to maintain physical form. With the warp rift collapsing and no more sacrificial energy to feed it, the greater demon began to dissipate. Its final words were a promise. "We will return. Chaos is eternal. This galaxy will burn." Then it was gone, banished back to the warp. The battle's momentum shifted immediately. Without demonic reinforcements and with their greater demon banished, the Chaos forces faltered. The Chaos Space Marines fought to the bitter end. They couldn't retreat, couldn't surrender, because they were damned beyond redemption. But conventional forces, even transhuman traitors, could be killed. By the time Ord Mantell's twin sun set, the Chaos incursion had been repelled. The cost was staggering. 2 capital ships destroyed, thousands of Imperial Guard and Rebel soldiers dead, 4 companies of Space Marines reduced to combat ineffective strength, and entire city sectors burned to ash to purge the taint. But they had won. The warp rift was sealed. Chaos's foothold in the galaxy had been eliminated before it could spread. In the aftermath, an uneasy silence fell over the survivors. Black Templars stood beside Rebel soldiers. Imperial Navy officers coordinated with Crusade fleet captains. Force wielders meditated near sanctioned psychers. Inquisitor Cord surveyed the battlefield and spoke the thought everyone was thinking. This changes everything. The summit took place on neutral ground, an abandoned space station in the Corellian sector, equidistant from Imperial and Imperium holdings. It was the first formal diplomatic contact between three powers that, mere weeks ago, would have been unthinkable as anything but enemies. Chapter Master Mordred entered the conference chamber in full battle plate, his armor still bearing scorch marks from Ord Mantell. Behind him stood Inquisitor Cord, her bionic eyes scanning for threats that would never materialize in this carefully negotiated space. Across the table sat two delegations that despised each other almost as much as they feared the Imperium. Imperial Moff Trakta, representing Palpatine's interests, and Mon Mothma, leading the Rebel Alliance contingent. Let us be clear about what happened at Ord Mantell, Cord began without preamble. We defeated a common enemy through necessity, not friendship. Chaos was repelled, but the greater question remains. What happens now? Moff Trakta leaned forward, his aged face expressionless. The Emperor has authorized me to present terms. Your Imperium brought this chaos plague into our galaxy. You bear responsibility for every death it caused. The Galactic Empire demands immediate withdrawal from all occupied systems and reparations for... Your Emperor has no authority to demand anything from us. Mordred's voice cut through Trakta's words like a chain's word through flesh. The God Emperor of mankind rules over 1,000,000 worlds spanning 10,000 years of continuous warfare. Your Galactic Empire is barely 2 decades old and controls a fraction of a single galaxy. Do not mistake our cooperation against chaos as submission. Mon Mothma raised her hand before the confrontation could escalate. Gentlemen, threats accomplish nothing. The reality is that none of us can afford another conflict. The chaos incursion nearly overwhelmed our combined forces. If it returns... When it returns, Cord corrected. Chaos is eternal. We sealed the primary rift, but corruption lingers. Cultists still hide in your populations. Minor warp breaches will occur, and the ruinous powers now know this galaxy exists. They will try again. The weight of that statement settled over the chamber. It was Mon Mothma who voiced what everyone was thinking. Then we need to know how to fight them. Your Imperium has 10,000 years of experience. We have none. You want our knowledge. Cord's smile was thin. What do you offer in return? Trakta's expression soured. The Emperor will never accept your religious doctrine or your claims of human supremacy. But intelligence sharing regarding this chaos threat could be arranged. Conditional cooperation. The rebellion seconds that position, Mon Mothma added carefully. We oppose tyranny in all forms, Imperial and Imperium alike. But we won't sacrifice the galaxy's survival to ideology. Mordred stood, his massive form dominating the room. The God Emperor teaches that humanity must stand united against the darkness. You may not accept his divinity. You may not embrace imperial truth, but you will learn to recognize chaos when you see it, and you will purge it without mercy. This is not negotiable. He activated a data slate, and holographic images appeared. Demon classifications, corruption identification protocols, emergency sanctification rituals. This knowledge cost the Imperium millions of lives over millennia. We share it not from kindness, but from pragmatism. A galaxy consumed by chaos serves no one. Lexicanum Hadrian entered the chamber, accompanied by Q-Ron. The Jedi Master's presence caused immediate tension, but Cord gestured for calm. The Force wielders of this galaxy possess unique resistance to chaos corruption. Their force stabilizes the warp in ways Imperial sanctioning does not. We have reevaluated our position on their existence. Reevaluated? Mon Mothma looked cautiously hopeful. Unsanctioned psychers remain heretical by Imperial doctrine, Cord stated flatly. However, the Ordo Malleus recognizes practical necessity. Force wielders who cooperate with anti-chaos protocols and submit to monitoring will be classified as provisionally sanctioned rather than executed on sight. It wasn't acceptance. It wasn't friendship. But it was the Inquisition offering not to kill every Force sensitive in the galaxy, a massive concession by their standards. Kuran bowed slightly. The surviving Jedi will need to make difficult choices. Many will refuse cooperation with either empire. But those of us who witnessed what chaos can do, he met Cord's gaze. We understand the threat is real. I will carry your warning to those who will listen. And the dark side users? Hadrian asked. The Sith and their apprentices? Trakta's expression was unreadable. The Emperor's personal business is not subject to this council's jurisdiction, which meant Palpatine was keeping his Sith knowledge to himself. Not surprising, but troubling. The dark side's similarity to chaos corruption made Sith particularly vulnerable to demonic influence. If Palpatine became corrupted, Mordred decided not to press the issue. For now. The Crusade fleet will withdraw from the core worlds and establish a defensive perimeter in the unknown regions. We will monitor the sealed rift and purge any remaining chaos presence. In exchange, both your factions will provide navigational data and allow limited Imperial presence for anti-chaos operations. Occupation by another name, Trakta muttered. Survival by any means necessary, Mordred countered. Your choice is simple. Accept our presence as guardians against chaos, or face the next incursion alone. We've seen what happens to galaxies that ignore the threat. They burn. Completely. The negotiations continued for hours, but the framework was established. The Imperium would remain in the galaxy, but constrained to the unknown regions and specific anti-chaos operations. Imperial and rebel forces would maintain their civil war, but share intelligence on chaos threats. Force wielders would receive provisional protection in exchange for cooperation. It was an impossible alliance built on mutual distrust and pragmatic terror, but it was functional. As the summit concluded and delegations prepared to depart, Inquisitor Cord pulled Mon Mothma aside privately. Your rebellion fights for freedom, noble in its way. But understand this, chaos offers freedom too. Freedom from restraint, from morality, from sanity. Be careful what you wish for, Senator. Some tyrannies exist because the alternative is worse. Mon Mothma met the Inquisitor's gaze without flinching. And some fight tyranny because even chaos is preferable to eternal servitude. We'll find our own path. On Coruscant, Emperor Palpatine reviewed the summit's results with Lord Vader at his side. The Imperium remains an annoyance, but they've proven useful against this chaos threat. Master, their presence changes the balance of power. The rebels grow bolder, knowing they have potential allies. The Imperium are not the rebels' allies. They're zealots who view all of us as heretics. Palpatine's smile was cold. But zealots can be manipulated. Chaos weakened us. Let the Imperium bleed fighting it while we consolidate our strength. When the time comes, we will deal with them both. In the unknown regions, Chapter Master Mordred knelt before a hololithic shrine to the God Emperor. His brothers gathered around him. We came to this galaxy seeking lost human worlds. We found heretics and Xenos lovers. But we also found something unexpected. Humans who resist chaos through their own strength, their own philosophies. Perhaps the God Emperor's plan extends farther than we knew. Do you believe they can be saved? Chaplain Cassius asked. I believe they can be taught. Mordred stood, his conviction absolute. This galaxy has potential. It will either embrace the Imperial truth, or it will burn in chaos's fires. Our crusade continues, but its nature has changed. We are no longer conquerors alone. We are teachers, guardians, and if necessary, executioners. Aboard the rebel base, Kuran meditated on everything he'd witnessed. The Force whispered warnings of storms yet to come. The Imperium would not remain content in the unknown regions forever. Chaos would attempt new incursions. The Galactic Empire would seek to exploit both threats. And the rebellion would have to navigate between three existential threats while maintaining its core principles. An impossible task. But then, the rebels had always specialized in impossible tasks. Across the galaxy, things had fundamentally changed. Three powers now vied for dominance. The Galactic Empire with its technological might and Sith sorcery, the Rebel Alliance with its guerrilla tactics and hope for freedom, and the Imperium of Man with its transhuman warriors and 10,000 years of brutal experience. And lurking in the shadows of the sealed rift, chaos waited patiently. The ruinous powers had tasted this virgin galaxy, felt its potential for corruption, sensed the billions of souls ripe for harvest. They would return. Perhaps not today, perhaps not tomorrow, but they would return. The galaxy far, far away had been forever changed by its collision with Warhammer 40K's grim darkness. What had been a simple conflict between freedom and tyranny now included questions of faith versus reason, sanctioned power versus natural ability, and whether humanity could unite against external darkness or would fracture into endless war. The Imperium had launched its crusade into Star Wars, and nothing would ever be the same. The Crusade fleet Invictus held position at the boundaries of known space, its battle barges scarred but unbroken. Within their halls, Space Marines maintained eternal vigil against threats both known and unknown. The sealed warp rift pulsed with residual energy, a reminder that their war was far from over. In the galaxy proper, an uneasy peace settled over contested territories. Imperial Star Destroyers and Rebel corvettes maintained their distance from Imperium vessels, all three factions watching each other with suspicion and grudging respect. The shared battle against chaos had revealed strengths and weaknesses on all sides, information each power would exploit when the temporary cooperation inevitably collapsed. Force wielders across the galaxy grappled with new knowledge. The Force was not unique. There were other powers, darker and more ancient, that hungry entities from beyond reality sought to corrupt. Some Jedi survivors accepted inquisitorial monitoring as the price of survival. Others fled deeper into hiding, trusting in the Force alone. And the Sith schemed, seeking ways to harness chaos without being consumed by it. Chapter Master Mordred stood on the Invictus's observation deck, gazing at the unfamiliar stars. This galaxy held billions of human souls living in ignorance of the God Emperor's light. Converting them all would take centuries. Purging the Xenos' influence would require campaigns beyond counting, and chaos would test them again and again, seeking weakness, corruption, any crack through which to pour. "The Emperor protects," Mordred whispered to the void, "and his angels shall be the instruments of that protection." Behind him, Inquisitor Cord approached with new intelligence reports. Cult activity detected on 17 worlds, possible Sith artifacts that might attract demonic attention, rebel cells that could become assets or threats. The work never ended, but for the first time since arriving, Cord felt something unexpected. Hope, not the naive hope of the rebellion's idealists, but the grim determination of those who'd fought impossible odds before. This galaxy could be saved. It would cost rivers of blood and require compromises that made her soul ache. But it could be done. Somewhere in deep space, the last word-bearer survivors limped toward the galactic edge, carrying with them the seed of future corruption. Chaos had been repelled but not defeated. The ruinous powers watched this new galaxy with hungry eyes, planning their next assault. The God Emperor's crusade had only just begun. May the Force be with you. More stories await.